Suho landed directly on the man's face, slamming him into the ground. His shadow soldiers and the sword silently observed from behind. The other hunters stood frozen in shock as the man's face smashed into the cold, hard floor. The hunter glared at Suho, demanding his identity. Suho froze, realizing his body had acted on its own. Trespassing on another guild's territory was bought illegal. He needed a plan. A thought sparked in his mind. Shadows swirled around his face, forming a mask that concealed his identity. He faced the hunters, his cold gaze piercing through the darkness. The masked figure stood before them, an unknown avenger confronting the Hyena Guild's crimes. The hunters shouted, demanding Suho's identity, their anger flaring. Without warning, they lunged at him, launching an attack. Suho swiftly dodged, his movements fluid and precise. He assessed the situation, recalling his research. The Hyena Guild's members averaged around D rank. Holding back his full strength, he prepared to subdue them without revealing his true daunt power. Suho delivered a powerful punch, sending one hunter crashing into another. Without losing momentum, he followed up with a swift kick, striking two hunters in the face simultaneously. Beru observed the fight in silence, his thoughts filled with admiration. The young monarch had grown so much that those humans called D-rank awakeners were no longer a match for him. Beru's heart swelled with pride, deeply moved by Suho's rapid progress. Suho glanced at the fallen hunters and muttered to himself, realizing how easily he had won. A status window appeared before him. Status window. Name, Sung Suho. Level, 16. Health, 2350. Mana, 235. Strength, 33. Agility, 25. Vitality, 25. Intelligence, 25. Sense, 25. The hunters lay bound on the ground, completely subdued. Suho shook his head, brushing off the brief encounter. Beru observed the scene in admiration, noting the flawless execution of Suho's actions. The civilians expressed their gratitude, asking if Suho was a hunter from the Hunter Association. Suho vaguely affirmed, advising them to seek safety while the situation was handled. As the civilians departed, Suho silently observed them, questioning the Hyena Guild's motive for abducting people. The sword's presence stirred, sensing something nearby. It directed Suho's attention, revealing that the true reason for their arrival lay ahead. Suho opened the storage building, his eyes widening in shock at the sight before him. The cramped space was filled with metal cages. A faint, unsettling energy lingered in the air, catching Beru's attention. His sharp senses detected something unusual hidden within the building. As Suho scanned the cages, his gaze settled on a small puppy trembling inside one of them. Confusion flickered in his eyes as he wondered what twisted purpose the Hyena Guild had for locking up both people and animals in such a place. The sword revealed that the creature was no ordinary puppy. It was a young wolf pup, the descendant of the king of beasts, the monarch of fangs. Suho's eyes widened in disbelief at the revelation. The sword explained that after losing the war against the Shadow Monarch, the monarch of fangs had entrusted his surviving descendant to a guardian and evacuated it to the sanctuary. The monarch's wish was not to birth another monarch, but simply to preserve his bloodline from extinction. The faint energy lingering around the pup was a remnant of the monarch of fangs, though greatly weakened. If left alone, the creature would surely perish. The sword awaited Suho's decision, placing the young monarch at a crossroads. Suho was about to make his decision when his eyes suddenly widened, sensing an unfamiliar presence. A cold voice echoed from the entrance. The unseen figure remarked how surprising it was to find only one person inside, considering the chaos outside. Suho's sharp gaze shifted toward the voice, cursing under his breath. He hadn't accounted for another enemy. As he turned, his eyes narrowed. What stood before him wasn't a human, but a monster. The monster seethed with contempt, cursing the Hyena Guild for their incompetence and affirming that humans could never be trusted. The sword recognized the creature as Brochi, the loyal guard of the monarch of Fang's descendant. Suho's eyes widened at the revelation. Brochi acknowledged the sword, surprised by its survival. The sword reminded Brochi of his duty to protect the descendant, questioning his negligence. Brochi, enraged, dashed toward Suho, accusing him of touching his possession. Suho's thoughts raced. The monster was fast. Brochi, consumed by rage, grabbed the wolf pup and smashed it toward Suho. Suho blocked the attack, but the overwhelming impact sent him crashing through the wall, launching him into the stacked containers nearby. Beru watched with concern as Suho staggered to his feet, blood trickling from his head. The heavy blow had left Suho dazed, his head ringing from the impact. Despite the pain, he steadied himself, brushing off Beru's worried gaze. A notification appeared before Suho. Skill. Resilience has leveled up. His physical defense instantly increased from plus 20% to plus 40%. Beru sensed the faint energy lingering in the air since their arrival, now certain of its origin, Itarim. Suho's eyes widened in shock at the revelation. Beru's gaze fixed on Brochi, declaring that the foreign energy was emanating from the guardian beast itself. Rakan's fang trembled with anger, questioning if Brochi understood the gravity of harming the monarch's descendant. Despite losing the sanctuary, it had struggled to preserve what little power remained. Brochi's cold gaze remained unwavering. He declared that only the strong survive, while the weak exist solely to serve them. It was the law of nature, where the weak become nourishment for the strong. Although the wolf pup was fragile, its noble bloodline made it the perfect source of nourishment. Brochi revealed that he had been periodically consuming the pup's blood to sustain his strength. Rakan's fang seethed with fury, vowing to kill Brochi for his betrayal. Brochi sneered, mocking the powerless blade. He taunted that a half-blood like Rakan's fang could do nothing alone. The death of Rakan was simply proof of his weakness. As the one who survived, Brochi claimed himself the strongest, the most fitting to inherit the title of the next monarch of fangs. Suho's punch shattered Brochi's hand, leaving blood dripping from the beast's wound. Brochi glared at his injury, seething with rage. A shadow soldier swiftly snatched the wolf pup, retreating to safety. Brochi's burning eyes locked onto Suho, his fury intensifying. Gripping the sword grief tightly, Suho's aura flared with unwavering resolve. The bond between Shadow and Fang formed in that moment, a first alliance born from shared hatred. As the vague energy of Itarim lingered in the air, Suho's heart pounded. He had finally found a clue that connected to his father. Brochi's voice rumbled with contempt, his sharp claws flexing. The beast's crimson eyes burned, with murderous intent as he snarled at Suho. A sudden notification flickered before Suho. Quest notice. Urgent quest. Hunt the hyena. Objective. Eliminate the hyena Brochi and secure your safety. Beru held the wolf pup, unable to do anything but watch. The wolf pup trembled in Beru's arms. Suho stood tall, gripping his sword tightly, his sharp gaze locked onto Brochi. The tension in the air was palpable, the weight of the moment settling heavily around them. Just then, a notification appeared before him. Quest arrival. Quest guide. Emergency quest. Hunt the hyenas. Ensure safety by defeating Hyena Brochi. Suho observed Hyena Brochi with a sharp gaze, acknowledging the name with a hint of curiosity. Questions filled his mind as he analyzed the situation. The existence of a monster, forming a guild while also engaging in human trafficking, was perplexing. There had to be a deeper connection, perhaps even a link to Itarim. The tense atmosphere was suddenly interrupted by the desperate voices of Brochi's tied-up hunters. They pleaded for their leader to free them. One of them cried out, insisting that Suho was no ordinary opponent. Suho refused to stand by and let it happen. Before he could act, Brochi's jaws stretched open, wide, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Without hesitation, he lunged at the restrained hunters, his predatory instincts taking over as he attacked them mercilessly. Suho's face twisted in shock as he watched the brutal scene unfold. Brochi sneered, his eyes gleaming with disdain. He scoffed at the idea of needing help against an opponent like Suho. To him, those who didn't know their place were nothing more than prey. Suho shouted Brochi's name, gripping his sword tightly as he launched a fierce attack. Brochi, unfazed, raised his claw and effortlessly blocked the strike, his sharp talons clashing against the blade with a piercing screech. Suho's voice rang with anger as he questioned Brochi's ruthless actions, but Brochi only sneered, declaring that the strong had no need for justification. In a flash, Suho was sent flying, through a wall from the sheer force of Brochi's strike. He barely had time to steady himself before noticing another attack coming his way, swiftly dodging just in time. Brochi wasted no time launching another swift attack. Suho raised his sword just in time to block, the force sending vibrations through his arms. Before he could counter, Brochi's claws came slashing down again, forcing Suho to react quickly. Brochi stomped his foot into the ground, unleashing a shockwave that shattered the stone beneath him. As debris scattered, he sensed movement above. Suho had already launched into the air, his sword crackling with energy as he unleashed Storm Slash, a powerful arc slicing downward. Brochi let out a mocking laugh, unfazed by the attack. His confidence radiated as he stood firm, scoffing at the attempt. To him, such an assault was unworthy of the monarch of Fangs' relic. Suho drove his sword into Brochi's back, his grip tightening as he pushed forward. Refusing to let up, he commanded his blade to rotate, delivering a devastating blow. Meanwhile, Fang watched in disbelief, his voice filled with anguish. He couldn't understand how Brochi, once loyal and honorable, had become this way. The one who had once sworn allegiance to Sir Raken now stood as something unrecognizable. Brochi stood frozen, confusion clouding his mind as the words echoed within him. Had he truly honored Raken? Doubt crept in, and the image of Raken in his memory shattered like fragile glass. A surge of rage and denial overtook him. With a roar, he seized the sword lodged in his back, yanking it free and hurling it to the ground. The blade struck the stone floor with force, shattering upon impact. Brochi's eyes burned with defiance as he dismissed any respect for Raken, acknowledging that he had only submitted to his strength in the past. The thought of continuing a weak existence was unthinkable. As Suho called out to Fang in concern, Brochi sneered, seizing the opportunity. Without hesitation, he delivered a powerful punch to Suho's stomach, aiming to crush him with sheer force. Pain shot through Suho's body, his bones feeling as if they were on the verge of breaking. However, the thought of his father, possibly fighting his own battles somewhere else at that very moment, reignited his resolve. Suho stood as shadows gathered around his hands, forming into a dark gauntlet. With unwavering force, he struck Brochi with a powerful punch. The impact sent shockwaves through the air, but Suho remained firm. He couldn't collapse here. Not now. Brochi and Suho exchanged powerful blows, their attacks shaking the ground beneath them. Each strike was met with an equally fierce counter. The broken sword lay on the ground, strength leaked from its fragmented body, its essence dissipating into the air. A lingering thought echoed from within. Was this the end? Was it truly being destroyed like this? Even the future of the Fangs now rested entirely on Sung Suho alone. Yet, a desperate will remained, a yearning to fight, a desire to keep going. The wolf pup struggled to stand, its small frame trembling with determination. Observing the scene, the broken sword seemed to resonate with understanding. It recognized the pup as Raken's descendant and realized that Suho's unwavering fighting spirit had ignited something within the young creature. With its remaining strength, the sword made its final decision, to transfer its lingering power to the descendant. The young descendant absorbed the power, its small body now radiating a crimson aura. Meanwhile, Suho was sent flying from Brochi's attack, crashing into the ground with force. Struggling to stand, he felt the weight of his injuries. His health had plummeted from 2,350 to just 21. Doubt crept into his mind as he questioned himself. He had grown stronger, but was it enough to defeat Brochi? Brochi sneered, mocking Suho's resilience. Despite being nothing more than a mere worm, he had managed to hold on for quite some time. Without hesitation, Brochi launched another, powerful attack. Suho, unable to move, felt the weight of exhaustion and pain pressing down on him. Just as the attack was about to land, a blur of motion dashed forward. The young descendant, filled with newfound strength, sank its teeth into Brochi's hand, stopping the strike, meant for Suho. Suho stared in confusion at the young descendant, surprised by its sudden intervention. Brochi, now furious, glared at his bleeding hand where the bite marks were deep. The young wolf stood beside Suho, growling with determination. Then, a notification appeared before Suho. Fang's descendant pays tribute to the player's fighting spirit. Do you want to recruit Fang's descendant as a colleague? Suho's eyes widened as he processed the sudden notification. The Fang's descendant? Was it the same little wolf from earlier? The system's offer lingered before him, presenting the opportunity to recruit the young creature as a colleague. Brochi's eyes flared with fury as he realized the truth. Raken's descendant had absorbed the mana from Raken's fang. Suho quickly pieced it together. Raken's fang had sacrificed itself to protect the young wolf. A sudden notification appeared before him. Do you want to recruit Fang's descendant as a colleague? Without hesitation, Suho made his decision. He had intended to cooperate with Fang from the start, so there was no reason to refuse. He tapped yes. Another notification followed. You have recruited Fang's descendant as a colleague. A surge of foreign memories flowed into Suho's mind, the memories of Raken's descendant. In the vision, Brochi spoke with a heavy tone, addressing the young descendant. He acknowledged their loss in the war against the Shadow Monarch, stating that the world followed the rule of survival of the fittest. Because they had been defeated, many things would be taken from them. He urged the young one to become strong so that the Fang clan could one day prosper. With an uncharacteristic gentleness, he placed a hand on the descendant's head. Tears welled in the young wolf's eyes as fear gripped its small body. Before it stood Brochi, now kneeling in submission before strange figures, beings with eerie lights shining from their heads. Confusion filled Brochi's voice as he questioned them. He demanded to know what they were and why they had not yet ended him. A woman holding a baby observed him with a calculating gaze. Coldly, she remarked that he seemed like a useful monster. The baby in her arms let out a chilling giggle before speaking. It declared that Brochi was exactly what it needed. With a twisted smile, the woman made her decision. She reached out and embedded a metallic device into Brochi's eye. Pain surged through him as something foreign took hold within him. The young descendant's cries grew louder as it was forced to witness everything. The woman's voice carried a cruel command. From that moment on, Hyena Brochi's duty would be to capture humans alive and deliver them to her. The device implanted in him would grant him greater strength, its potential depending on the one who wielded it. The darkness behind her words was suffocating. The desires they held were beyond twisted. As the memory faded, Suho stood in shock. These people, the ones who had implanted the device into Brochi, were directly connected to Itarim. Realization dawned upon him. The Fang's descendant did not seek revenge against Brochi. It only wanted to stop his rampage. But if this was all tied to a greater plan, then defeating Brochi was the only option. Yet, a grim truth settled in his mind. He lacked the power to win. A notification appeared before Suho. Notice, you have received a quest for recruiting a colleague. Suho's brows furrowed as he read the message. Another message followed immediately. Quest notice. Quest. Monarch's descendants. Objective. Seek out the Monarch's descendants and recruit them as colleagues. Progress. Monarch descendants who have become colleagues. 1 out of 8. As Suho processed the information, another alert appeared. A bond skill is formed due to the bond with the Fang's descendant. A newfound connection surged through him, the presence of his new ally resonating within. The young descendant and the young monarch flared with a powerful aura, their energy surging in unison. Baru observed the phenomenon, noting that the young monarch was undergoing a dight transformation unlike anything that had happened to the king before. Meanwhile, Brochi, filled with frustration and determination, refused to stand idly by. Without hesitation, he launched a devastating attack towards Suho, the force of the blow creating a powerful impact that sent shockwaves through the area. A thick cloud of dust engulfed the battlefield, obscuring everything from view. Amidst the chaos, a notification appeared, an indication that a new skill had been created through the bond with the Fangs' descendant. Brochi was momentarily stunned as he felt an unfamiliar grip restraining his arms. A human hand, now bearing sharp, beast-like claws, held him firmly in place. His gaze shifted to the figure before him, and his eyes widened in shock. Suho's appearance had changed completely. His once dark hair had turned a striking white, and an overwhelming aura radiated from his transformed body. A notification suddenly appeared. Bond skill, Beast Possession, Level 1. Mana cost, 1 per second. By allowing the Fangs' descendant to dwell within your body, your physical form is enhanced, and your senses sharpened to the level of a beast. Brochi's shock as he realized what had happened. Suho had absorbed the descendant's power. Without hesitation, Brochi launched a fierce attack, his claws tearing through the air. Suho, however, effortlessly dodged the strike. His body felt incredibly light, his movements art sharper and more precise than ever before. A newfound awareness coursed through him. His senses had become as keen as a beast's, allowing him to instinctively detect the best ways to evade danger. Brochi's expression twisted in disbelief as he took in Suho's transformation. The weak opponent, from moments ago, had become something entirely different. Brochi's mind raced with desperation. He couldn't afford to lose. If he did, everything would be over. With renewed determination, he launched a powerful attack, his claws tearing through the air, with lethal force. Suho stood firm, raising his arms to block the strike. The impact sent a shockwave rippling through the battlefield. From a distance, Baru observed the clash, sensing a shift in energy. Suho's mana had increased. Brochi's eyes burned with fury. He didn't understand what had changed, but one thing was certain. He would never accept defeat at the hands of a human. To him, power was dictated by species, and in the end, humans were simply inferior. Suho and Brochi continued exchanging powerful blows, each strike meeting with equal force. Their battle intensified, fists colliding in rapid succession. Mid-combat, Brochi suddenly froze, his eyes widening in shock as he looked down at his hands. Blood dripped from fresh wounds. At that moment, a notification appeared. You have learned a new skill, Unarmed Combat Elovibars. Suho's hands began to glow with a faint light as another notification followed. Skill, Unarmed Combat Lovidal. Passive skill, Mana. Cost, none. You become more skillful in hand-to-hand combat. Attacks using your body will deal 33% additional damage to opponents. Baru seethed with anger, refusing to accept any claim of species superiority before the young monarch. To him, nothing could surpass the species of the Shadow Monarch. Brochi's eyes widened in realization. The kid was the Shadow Monarch's successor. Before he could react, Suho launched a powerful kick mid-air, striking Brochi's head with immense force. His body crashed into the ground, shattering the earth beneath him. Under the midnight sky, the forest remained still, the aftermath of battle lingering in the air. Suho's once white hair faded back to black, his body trembling with exhaustion. His breath was heavy, each inhale and exhale labored from the intense fight. Brochi lay motionless on the ground, his battered form barely stirring. The young descendant stood beside him, gently licking his head, its quiet presence offering a faint sense of comfort. A sudden crack echoed as the crystal embedded in Brochi's eye shattered. His body tensed as memories surged through his mind, flashes of a past long buried. Images of Sir Raken surfaced, and with them, the raw fury of his past failure. The weight of his inability to protect the one he once served pressed against him, rekindling the very reason he had sought strength in the first place. Nearby, Suho remained standing, the young descendant growling softly at his side. The energy of the battle still clung to the air, thick with unspoken tension. Then, a notification appeared. You have defeated Hyena, Brochi. Notice. Level up, level up. The young descendant gazed silently at Brochi's lifeless body, its eyes filled with an emotion beyond words. Suho stood nearby, his gaze shifting between the fallen warrior and the wolf pup beside him. Beru stepped forward, his voice unwavering. The weight of the battle still hung in the air, but his tone carried a quiet pride. Suho's expression darkened as he recalled what he had witnessed. His thoughts lingered on the fragmented memories that had surfaced within him. The vision of the hunters entering Brochi's dungeon, their hands embedding something into his eye, played over and over in his mind. The connection was too strong to ignore. The energy Beru had sensed, the foreign influence that had twisted Brochi, could it truly belong to the Ataram? If so, what purpose did they have in ambushing him? What greater scheme had they set in motion? Beru's tone remained firm as he analyzed the situation. The ones responsible were likely not the Ataram themselves. The outer gods did not act directly. Instead, they manipulated the world through their apostles, interfering with causality from the shadows. Suho processed the information carefully. If the Ataram's apostles were already on Earth, then their influence had spread further than he had anticipated. The uncertainty of their true motives weighed on him. If everything were to end here once again, gathering more information would be crucial. Beru proposed a method to uncover more information, devouring Brochi's corpse. By doing so, he could peer into the fallen warrior's memories, potentially revealing crucial details about the Ataram. Additionally, the act would restore his depleted mana, making it an efficient solution that accomplished two goals at once. Suho expressed surprise at Beru's ability before turning his attention to the young descendant, who looked visibly saddened. Observing its hesitation, Suho gently extended an offer, suggesting there was a place he wanted to show it. The young descendant seemed to contemplate the proposal before responding by licking Suho, a gesture of trust. With a smile, Suho activated his shadow key, opening a portal to a shadow dungeon. Before stepping through, he entrusted Beru with the task at hand. As Suho departed, Beru watched him go, remarking on the young monarch's kindness. Inside the shadow dungeon, Beru observed their surroundings before questioning Suho's decision to come there instead of returning to his usual abode. Suho explained his intention, to provide the Fangs' descendant with a place to live. Beru seemed momentarily surprised at the choice of location. However, Suho remained resolute, stating that since he was already allied with Fang, it only made sense to ensure its descendant had both a guardian and a sanctuary. A notification appeared, indicating that the Fang's descendant wished for Suho to give it a name. Suho considered for a moment before settling on a name inspired by its gray fur. Gray. Beru observed the scene, noting how Suho's naming sense bore a striking resemblance to that of his former king. Gray's eyes lit up with excitement as it let out a joyful sound, clearly pleased with the name. Suho declared his intention to transform the forest into the domain of Fang, instructing Gray to make use of it. A notification appeared, confirming that a portion of the shadow dungeon had been designated as the domain of Fang. Gray was officially recognized as the master of this newly established domain. Suho inquired about Gray's diet, turning to Beru for answers. Beru speculated that, being of the Fang's lineage, Gray should be capable of consuming other life forms or magical beasts. Satisfied with the response, Suho considered the abundance of remaining magical beasts in the area. With an idea forming, he decided that Gray would be perfect for handling the cleanup. Gray let out a low growl before swiftly attacking a goblin lurking in the shadows. With precise dot movements, it eliminated the threat with ease. Observing Gray's agility, Suho nodded in approval. Now that the situation was settling, he turned his attention to organizing the various items and skills he had acquired during this battle. A notification appeared, signaling the completion of the quest. Quest Reward Notice. You will receive the following rewards. Reward 1, +5 stat points. Reward 2, Title, Wolf Assassin, a title given to a hunter skilled in slaying wolves. All stats are increased by 40% when facing beast-type monsters. Beru explained that even his former king had never possessed such a system. The leveling system applied to Suho had been refined to remove the ill intentions that once existed within it. The original system, developed by the architect, had been designed to forcibly strengthen the human-sung Jinwu, molding him into a suitable vessel for the Shadow Monarch. Once the right process was complete, his soul was meant to be discarded. However, the Shadow Monarch had defied the system's intended purpose, allowing Sung Jinwu to become the new Shadow Monarch by his own will. Now, as a sublime being, Jinwu had no further need for a leveling system. But for Suho, the modified system remained, one that guided him toward recruiting the monarch's descendants as his allies. Suho questioned whether the system was guiding him toward becoming the next Shadow Monarch. Beru, however, refuted the idea. There was only one Shadow Monarch in existence, and that would not change. Instead, the system seemed to be adapting to Suho's unique path, shaping itself to fit his growth. If a previously non-existent feature had been introduced, it was likely designed to aid him in his journey. Suho pondered the purpose of his system as he commanded the status window to appear. As he analyzed the information before him, he finally understood why his class remained undefined. His stats had increased significantly compared to when he was just level 1, desperately fleeing from mistburns. He had gained numerous useful skills, yet he still felt weak. If not for the bond skill with Gray, he would have lost to Brochi. If the quests given by the system were tied to his own desires, then clearing them was his best course of action. By continuing to complete them, he believed he would eventually reunite with his parents. Recalling his recent battle, another thought crossed his mind. Were there any clues about the Iterum hidden within Brochi's memories? Beru confirmed that he had seen the memories Suho mentioned, but none were directly connected to the Itarum apostle who had brainwashed Brochi. Suho sighed, realizing that there were no clear clues after all. However, Beru continued, revealing that there were memories of a human who had created the Hyena Guild for Brochi and was responsible for taking the kidnapped humans. The name of that guild was Reaper. Suho's eyes narrowed at the mention of a guild. Beru speculated that investigating the Reaper Guild might provide them with more information about the Itarum. A phone vibrated, breaking the silence. A man tapped the screen to answer. On the other end, the caller wasted no time, immediately bringing up a pressing issue. News of the Hyena Guild's downfall had spread, and suspicion had fallen on him. The man on the phone demanded answers, his tone sharp and accusing. The recipient of the call, Lee Minsung, remained unfazed. He deflected the question with indifference, making light of the situation as if it were insignificant. However, the caller refused to be sidetracked, pressing forward with his accusations. With a growing edge of irritation, Lee Minsung dismissed the concern. The looming investigation by the association meant little to him. Even if questioned, he knew the power of denial and the influence of well-paid lawyers. The laws were weak, and he was confident that no real consequences would come his way. However, the mention of the association chairman made his expression darken. Though the system was flawed, there were still figures he could not afford to overlook. Before he could respond further, the call ended abruptly. He clenched his teeth in frustration. The arrogance of the man on the other end grated on him, an S-rank hunter who had once been nothing more than a lowly cab driver. With a sudden burst of anger, he hurled his phone across the room, watching as it shattered against the wall. His mind shifted to a more pressing matter. The Hyena Guild's destruction had left many questions, but one stood out: the identity of the person responsible. Survivors spoke of a young hunter clad in a black mask, but tracking them down would be a waste of time. There were bigger priorities at hand. Reaching for a small vial, he examined its contents with a smirk. The hunter stimulant, Star Powder, glowed faintly under the dim light. Once his business with it flourished, his influence would be undeniable. Gray stood over the goblin's corpse, its sharp eyes scanning the remains. Beru observed with approval, recognizing the creature's growing skill in battle. With continued effort, it would soon become a valuable asset to the young monarch. Letting out a low growl, Gray responded instinctively. Beru urged it to consume everything, ensuring no trace was left behind. Suho watched with mild amusement, noting how quickly Gray had adapted. At some point, its .name had even shifted from Gray to Grr without him realizing it. A notification appeared signaling that Gray had accumulated enough experience from hunting .magic beasts. Half of the earned experience would now be transferred to the player. Suho's eyes widened in surprise as he felt his experience increase the moment Gray finished its hunt. He turned to Baru, puzzled. This wasn't something he had encountered before. Was this a new feature of the system? Baru pondered for a moment before responding. While he wasn't entirely certain, he believed it functioned similarly to how the experience gained by shadow soldiers was transferred to his king. Suho considered the implications. It was like a party system in a game. Experience points were not shared, but with a 50% reduction. Even so, the idea of gaining experience automatically without direct combat was groundbreaking. Baru suggested that Gray should continue hunting in the area, seeing it as an efficient way to grow stronger. Just then, a status window appeared before Suho. Daily Quest. Shadow Dungeon Cleaning. Defeat 100 goblins. Defeat 10 goblin decurions. Defeat 1 goblin centurion. Suho examined the quest details. A daily quest that required him to hunt goblins, this system, was beginning to feel more and more like a game. Suho pondered the implications of the quest. If a quest existed, there had to be a reward, and, since it was labeled as a daily quest, did that mean he could claim rewards every single day? Baru observed the situation and concluded that the system likely intended for this entire area to fully integrate into Suho's domain. Suho glanced at the vast expanse before him, realizing the challenge of locating 100 goblins in such a large area. Without hesitation, he summoned his inventory and retrieved an item. Item: Horn Flute. A horn flute used by goblin centurions to call for their subordinates. Examining it, he recalled obtaining it from slaying goblins earlier. A thought crossed his mind. Perhaps this item could make the hunt significantly easier. Suho activated the horn flute, its eerie sound echoing through the shadowy dungeon. Almost instantly, the ground trembled with the sound of countless approaching footsteps. A massive horde of goblins emerged from the darkness, their glowing eyes locked onto him. Suho remained unfazed. This was exactly what he had anticipated. Baru observed the scene with admiration. His young monarch had cleverly used the flute to summon his enemies rather than wasting time searching for them. Suho clenched his fist, channeling raw power into a devastating punch. His burning gaze locked onto a goblin whose face twisted grotesquely from the force of the impact. Without hesitation, he followed up with another strike, his movements precise and lethal. He exhaled, unimpressed. Defeating goblins had lost its thrill, but since he had to eliminate them, in large numbers, efficiency was key. Lifting the horn flute once more, he blew into it, summoning another wave of creatures from the shadows. Then, without pause, he used a second flute, amplifying the call. The ground quaked as a flood of goblins rushed toward him. Suho smirked. This should be enough. Raising his hand, he uttered a single word. Arise. The fallen goblins trembled before their corpses darkened and reformed into shadow soldiers. At his command, Gray and the newly summoned goblin shadows charged into battle, cutting through the relentless horde. A notification appeared. Daily quest completed. Goblins, 107, 100. Goblin Decurion, 10, 10. Goblin Centurion, 1, 1. Gray was shocked to rewrite as third person only, no dialogue. After 3 hours of relentless hunting, Gray collapsed to the ground, exhausted. A notification appeared, confirming the completion of the daily quest, Shadow Dungeon, cleaning and prompting the reward collection. However, as Suho examined the system, he noticed something unusual. Despite having met the required number of kills, the quest counter continued to increase. A sense of curiosity stirred within him as he analyzed the situation. Rather than stopping, the system seemed to be tracking additional kills beyond the initial goal. Recognizing the potential for a hidden mechanic, Suho decided to push further, determined to uncover whatever secret lay behind the anomaly. Gray, still catching his breath, looked on in shock at Suho's relentless pursuit of the unknown. The quest counter continued to rise beyond its original requirements. Quest notice: Daily quest: Goblins, 200, 100. Goblin Decurion, 20, 10. Goblin Centurion, 2, Tior 1. Gray, utterly drained from the prolonged battle, stood trembling. His once lustrous fur had paled slightly, and his breathing was ragged. A notification appeared before Suho, signaling the completion of a hidden quest. Notice: Hidden quest: Shadow Dungeon. Cleaning has been completed. You have received a reward for completing a quest. Check your reward. As he accepted the completion, a new reward screen emerged. Quest reward notice: You will receive the following rewards. 1. Status recovery. Tuit. Stat points. Plus 3.3. Blessed random box. 4. Cursed random box. A prompt appeared, asking whether to accept all rewards. Suho chose to accept the first reward, and immediately, his body was fully restored. It felt as if he had leveled up, making him realize how useful this effect could be if saved for critical battles. Next, he accepted the stat points, understanding that gaining them would only become more difficult as his level increased. The daily quest rewards were proving to be a reliable way to grow stronger each day. Now he had to make a choice between the two random boxes. Blessed random box grants an item the player wants. Cursed random box grants an item the player needs. Suho pondered the decision. An item he wanted might turn out to be useless, while an item he needed could be something unexpected or even undesirable. Since his wants were too broad at the moment, he decided to trust the system and selected the cursed random box. You have obtained the item, Vulcan's Horn. Suho examined the newly obtained gauntlets with amazement. Having relied on transforming shadow soldiers into weapons, he had been looking for a separate weapon for himself. This was perfect. The gauntlet. The gauntlets boasted a 30% physical damage increase, and he speculated that the value might rise the more demons he hunted. Though they felt slightly heavy, he decided to compensate by investing all his available stat points into strength, increasing it from 35 to 43. With that settled, his next goal was to further enhance his weapon through battle. Suddenly, a new notification appeared. Quest notice: There has been a change in your companion's state. The loyalty of companion. Gray has changed from admiration to fear. Gray, exhausted from relentless hunting, seemed visibly shaken. Beru reminded him that Gray was not a shadow soldier with limitless stamina. Realizing his oversight, Suho decided to call it for the day, mentioning that he had something to take care of outside the dungeon. You have exited the shadow dungeon. Stepping back into the real world, Suho recalled the information he had gathered. The guild associated with the Hyena Guild was called Reaper. That would be his next target. Beru confirmed the name with a nod. Suho pondered where to begin his investigation when his phone suddenly buzzed. A message flashed across the screen, pleading for his help. Meanwhile, at the Seoul staging field, Danger Zone, Hyung anxiously waited. Today was an important dungeon expedition, but none of the haulers had shown up. Frustration settled in as he suspected they had abandoned their duties for a night of drinking. Upon Suho's arrival, he quickly assessed the situation and decided to assist. Grateful for the help, Hyung handed him a hazmat suit. Unlike miners, who worked safely in cleared areas of the dungeon, haulers had to follow the strike squad closely, removing the corpses of defeated magic beasts. This dangerous task required constant vigilance, as unexpected attacks were always a possibility. Additionally, many of the beasts' bodies contained hazardous materials, spines, venom, or toxic secretions that could cause serious injury. The hazmat suit served as essential protection for those handling the remains in such treacherous conditions. The strike team arrived, surveying the area with displeasure. Their leader immediately noticed the unusually small hauling team and questioned the situation. Hyung, still flustered, quickly explained that the haulers scheduled for the day were all missing. His response was met with frustration. The strike team's leader reprimanded him, reminding him of the contract obligations. The Reaper Guild had been paid a hefty entrance fee, and such negligence was unacceptable. With a sharp warning, he threatened to report them to the Hunter Association if they failed to keep up. A formal complaint would mean they'd never work as haulers again. Hyung, sweating under the pressure, hastily assured the team they would do their best, and pleaded for their trust. The strike team's leader scoffed in frustration, voicing his disdain for irresponsibility before stepping into the dungeon. Hyung, still fuming, leaned toward Suho and whispered, urging him to teach them a lesson using in his summons. Suho remained silent, his sharp gaze fixed on the departing strike team. His mind quickly to analyze their formation: 4 D-rank mage-type hunters, 4 D-rank combat-type dot hunters, and 1 C-rank healer. The one who had shouted moments ago appeared to be the dot healer, and likely the squad leader. His thoughts drifted back to recent events: the cursed random box that had granted him an item he needed, the demon-devouring weapon, Vulcan's horn. Then, there was T.A. Lim Hyung, who had coincidentally contacted him at that exact moment. And finally, the Reaper Guild, which managed this field-type dungeon. None of this felt like mere coincidence. Something felt off. The pieces were aligning too well, as if he had been led here for a reason. A creeping unease settled in his chest. Something dangerous was about to unfold. The leader of the strike squad gave the command, prompting the mages to illuminate the area. As the light spread, revealing the dim surroundings, lizard-like magic beasts slithered across the ground, their sharp claws scraping against the stone. With their numbers reduced, the Hauling Dot team stayed close to the strike squad, ready to begin their work as the battle commenced. Hyung acknowledged the order to stay close to the strike squad, understanding the need for caution. Meanwhile, Suho observed the lizard-type magic beasts, his thoughts lingering on the unexpected nature of their presence. He had anticipated a demon-type creature, especially since the cursed random box had granted him Vulcan's horn. Watching the hunter party in action would allow him to study their combat techniques, gaining insight into how various hunters operated in battle. With a wealth of Decurion and Centurion corpses accumulated from his daily quest, he decided to put them to use. Without hesitation, he gave the command, "Arise." As Suho assessed the battlefield, he noted that his growing intelligence had increased the number of shadow soldiers he could command to 7. The corpses of the defeated lizard magic beasts lay scattered across the ground. The strike leader surveyed the area before deciding it was time for a break. Some members expressed surprise at the early pause, but the strike leader explained that despite their willingness to continue hunting, they were limited by the number of haulers. However, as the strike leader turned around, his eyes widened in shock. The hauling was already finished. A shadowy figure loomed before him and asked if it was a summon. Suho gave a brief confirmation, prompting Hyung to anxiously wonder what he would say next. The strike leader extended a handshake, expressing eagerness for Suho to join their squad as an exclusive hauler. However, Suho showed no interest in continuing such work. Undeterred, the leader insisted, offering the highest possible salary in the field. Before the conversation could continue, one of the squad members rushed over in alarm. A grave issue had arisen. A civilian's lifeless body had been discovered. The strike leader immediately turned toward the source of the commotion, his expression shifting to one of shock and concern. The strike leader observed the scene carefully, acknowledging the presence of a corpse. Nearby, the mage studied the remains, noting the accessories that suggested the victim had been a civilian. However, something was off. There had been no reports of a fire-wielding magic beast in Seoul Station. Hyung glanced at Suho with growing unease, silently questioning the possibility that crossed his mind. Suho shared the same suspicion. The burns on the body resembled something familiar: mist burn. Recognition flashed across the leader's face as he processed the term. Mist burn referred to the recently discovered magic beasts that burned with an eerie blue flame. Hyung, still unsettled, recalled a previous encounter. They had been present at a mist burn incident before, back at Korea University of Arts. One of the strike team members called out, spotting another corpse nearby. Another voice quickly followed, announcing the discovery of yet another body. Suho turned to the raid leader, suggesting that they halt the hunt and report the situation to the Hunters Association. The leader remained calm, noting the victims were civilians and judging the threat minimal for their D-rank party. He reasoned that the situation shouldn't pose too much of a threat. The leader decided to continue, unfazed by the situation. Suho anticipated this response, but remained concerned. Despite Suho's warning about the mist burn's danger, the leader asserted his authority, instructing the hauling team to clean up and follow. Young sighed at the thought of encountering mist burns again, while Suho advised him to use his sprint skill and escape immediately if things took a turn for the worse. A sense of looming danger filled the air. A chilling scream echoed through the room. The source was a civilian, their eyes consumed by the eerie glow of mist burn. Nearby, a group of handcuffed civilians trembled, their bodies radiating the same ominous aura. A crowd observed the unsettling scene in silence. Among them, a man stepped forward. He assessed the spectacle before him, unimpressed. Then, turning to his subordinate, he inquired about the progress of acquiring more fuel. A cloaked man stepped forward, his tone laced with irritation. An issue had arisen with the supply, making it increasingly difficult to obtain the necessary fuel. He contemplated seeking out a certain human to establish a new supplier. Beside him, a beast-like humanoid growled in frustration. The demand for fuel was urgent. The downfall of Hyena, their primary supplier, had created an unexpected setback. At this rate, their factory would lag behind others in the production of star powder. The man with the animal skull turned his head upward and observed a hunter's arrival, perfect timing, given their need for fuel. The man with the beast face announced his intention to proceed, preparing for the necessary sacrifice and summoning of kin. Another member reminded Third that the objective was to capture the hunter alive, and Third agreed without hesitation. Meanwhile, on the other side of the dungeon, the strike team continued hunting lizard-type magic beasts. Their leader, pleased with their progress, noted that they were set to earn a considerable sum. One of the hunters agreed, glad they had chosen to continue hunting. Satisfied with their haul, the leader decided it was time to use a special item he had been saving. He revealed a vial of star powder, a highly sought-after mana amplifier among hunters. The others immediately recognized it, noting its rarity and the difficulty of obtaining one. To their daunt surprise, their leader had kept it hidden all this time. Although its effects only lasted for a week, star powder was known to be powerful enough to raise a low-rank hunter's abilities significantly. If he consumed it, he believed he would have enough mana to reach C rank. Third scanned the group, counting them one by one. 10 in total. Some would be troublesome opponents, but all 10 weren't necessary. The stronger ones needed to be eliminated. Gripping a vial of star powder, Third examined it closely. The hunters recoiled in shock. Could a magic beast use star powder? The realization sent a wave of urgency through them. Before the effects could take hold, they launched their attack. One hunter charged forward, only to be swiftly knocked unconscious by the sheer force of Third's blade. A mage followed up with a burst of flames, but the attack barely left a mark. Stunned by its ineffectiveness, the mage barely had time to react before being struck down as well. With ease, Third hoisted the limp bodies of the fallen hunters. Fuel secured. A notification appeared before Suho. Notice, a quest has arrived. He glanced at the glowing text, his eyes narrowing as another alert followed. Quest notice! Quest, rescue the survivors. A demon has captured people nearby. Rescue as many as possible. Rewards will vary depending on the number of survivors saved. Current number of survivors. 7. Rescued survivors. 0. Suho's gaze sharpened. A demon? Beru observed Suho closely, sensing his shift in focus. A new quest had just arrived. one that indicated demons were actively kidnapping people nearby. The reward structure suggested that time was of the essence. The longer he waited, the greater the danger to the captives. Without hesitation, Suho turned to Hyung. Urgency laced his movements as he ordered him to leave the dungeon immediately. Though Hyung hesitated, confused by Suho's sudden certainty, there was no time for explanations. A summoned goblin was already prepared to escort him to the entrance. Hyung hesitated for a moment before voicing his concern, but Suho had already made up his mind. He was going to the strike squad. Realizing he would only be a hindrance if he stayed, Hyung quickly accepted the situation. Without wasting any more time, he resolved to contact the Hunters Association for reinforcements as soon as he reached the exit. Suho summoned Gray and merged with him, feeling the surge of strength flow through his body. There was no time to waste. With a powerful push, he propelled himself forward. He dashed toward the strike squad's last known location, determined to reach them before it was too late. The place was engulfed in darkness, the air heavy with the scent of blood. Crimson stains marred the doorknob, a grim trail extending into the dimly lit hallway, where more streaks of blood painted the walls and floor. Scattered across the ground lay the unconscious bodies of the strike squad, motionless and lifeless in appearance. Third stood amidst the carnage, surveying his handiwork. Fuel secured. The preparations were nearly complete. Soon, the gate would open, and with it the arrival of a summoned demon. A victory was certain, and in anticipation, arrangements were being made to use the captured as fuel for what was to come. The other man muttered in frustration, finding the situation unfair. Meanwhile, the cloaked figure remained composed, reassured that the fuel supply had been replenished. With this, the production of star powder would proceed without issue. This so-called stimulant, passed off as a secret of the demons, had been created using the foundation of mad blood poison. Originally, mad blood poison enhanced one's mana at the cost of consuming the user's life force, but an unexpected breakthrough had been discovered. By replacing the hellfire in its composition with the flames of mistburn and igniting an essence stone infused with demon blood, the side effects had been drastically improved. All of this was made possible by the Apostle, the one who had revealed the secrets of its production. The creatures that twisted souls, corrupting life forms and turning them into mindless monstrosities, had been introduced into this world under the Apostle's guidance. Because of this, even lower-ranked demons had gained the opportunity to grow stronger. The demons turned their attention toward the door just as it was violently kicked open, splintering apart. Suho stepped through the wreckage, only to be met with an immediate attack from Third, who lunged at him without hesitation. Suho's eyes widened in shock. Before him stood demons, their presence undeniable. But what truly caught his attention were the figures bound behind them, multiple mistburn victims, their bodies engulfed in eerie blue flames. A ritual. His gaze flicked to the system notification. 7 survivors. A breath of relief, at least for now. They were still alive. Third swung his sword at Suho, but Suho swiftly dodged the attack. Third hesitated for a moment, confused by the effortless evasion. Suho assessed the situation, his gaze sharp as he considered the lifeless hunters he had encountered earlier. Without hesitation, he delivered a powerful punch, sending Third crashing across the room. The man in the cloak observed intently. Their youngest had just awakened after consuming the star powder, yet his attack had been avoided with ease. A smirk formed on his lips as he exchanged a glance with his brother. It seemed they would have to step in. Third staggered under the relentless barrage of powerful punches from Suho, unable to counter the continuous assault. Suddenly, Suho sensed a shift in the air. Before he could react, 2 other demons lunged at him from opposite sides. He swiftly evaded their attacks, but his instincts flared again. Another presence loomed behind him. A demon's hand crackled with lightning before unleashing a sudden surge of electricity, striking Suho and momentarily stunning him. Taking advantage of the opening, Third followed up with a point-swift sword slash. Without hesitation, Suho summoned his goblins. The creatures materialized instantly, intercepting Third's attack and shielding him from harm. At the same moment, Suho launched forward, delivering a devastating punch to the cloaked figure, sending him hurtling backward through the air. The cloaked man observed the scene intently, his eyes narrowing as recognition dawned upon him. The dark energy swirling around the summoned creatures bore a striking resemblance to the authority of the Shadow Monarch, an overwhelming power that demons had once witnessed on the day of their destruction. However, as he studied it further, he noted a distinct difference. This presence, though formidable, lacked the sheer, suffocating dominance of the true Shadow Monarch. It was weaker, incomplete. With that realization, any initial fear dissipated. As long as the being before them was not the Shadow Monarch himself, there was no reason to retreat. Suho assessed the situation, his mind racing. Each of the demons was weaker than Brochi, but facing them all at once posed a significant challenge. Even if he continuously resurrected the goblins, it would only drain his mana unnecessarily. He considered his options. Perhaps it was time to use that. Meanwhile, Beru's voice echoed in his mind. The insectoid knight had faithfully preserved the remaining corpse, having consumed enough to extract its lingering memories. He noted that shadow soldiers naturally weakened over time after death, questioning Suho's reasoning for holding on to it. Suho's thoughts drifted back to Brochi's final moments. The giant had fought under the oppressive will of the Atarim, his last battle filled with regret. If the Shadow Authority truly had the power to grant freedom, could he offer Brochi the chance to fight as a warrior of his own will? For that to happen, he needed Gray. Turning his attention inward, he called out Gray and asked if he's okay. Suho raised his shadow key, the air crackling with dark energy as he activated its power. The gate to the abyss slowly creaked open. With a commanding voice he spoke, his words laced with authority. If Brochi's final battle had been tainted by regret, then this was his chance to fight once more, on his own terms. The massive corpse remained still for a moment. Then, the shadows surged toward Suho, gathering like a raging tide. A claw emerged first, pressing against the ground with a force that cracked the stone beneath it. Slowly, the hulking form of Brochi rose from the darkness, his towering figure reconstructed through Suho's power. A deafening roar echoed through the chamber, shaking the very walls. Suho met the gaze of his newly summoned shadow soldier, his expression unwavering. The man in the cloak took an involuntary step back, his voice trembling with disbelief. Hyena. Brochi stood before him, now a shadow soldier. The realization struck. Suho was the one who had defeated him. With Suho, Gray, and Brochi assembled, the battle was set. Determination burned in his eyes as he charged forward, launching a relentless attack against the demons. A dark aura crackled with lightning before shifting into a burning red glow. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward, a girl with cat-like ears silently observing the battle unfold. The girl stood silently, her sharp eyes observing the scene. She muttered to herself, wondering if someone had summoned her, perhaps a demon seeking to devour life. But then, her gaze landed on the battlefield, and her expression shifted to surprise. A shadow soldier stood among them. Why was a shadow soldier here? Third swung his sword toward Suho, but Suho blocked the strike and immediately followed up with another counter. Charging his fist with force, Suho landed a solid blow to Third's face, sending him reeling, then delivered another punch without pause. As Third staggered, Suho shifted his gaze toward the man in the cloak, swiftly dodging the lightning attack aimed at him. The man in the cloak caught the lightning in his hands, controlling it with ease. Suho frustrated by the constant interference, their teamwork making them difficult to handle. The man in the cloak cautioned the youngest, and Third acknowledged with a nod. Suho narrowed his eyes, analyzing the situation. If the fight dragged on any longer, his mana would soon be depleted due to Gray's possession. Brochi, now weakened after becoming a shadow soldier, could only handle one opponent at a time. Suho's mind raced, searching for an opening, some way to separate the two demons, even briefly, so he could take them down one by one. A woman with a spear suddenly appeared before Suho, blocking his path. She fixed her sharp gaze on him, demanding an answer. Suho's thoughts raced. An injured female knight? Where did she come from? And why was she searching for his father, Sung Jinwoo, too? Beru stepped forward, his tone calm but curious as he questioned her presence. The woman's eyes widened in shock, her expression softening with recognition. That voice. Could it really be Beru? She exclaimed in surprise, delighted to see him, though puzzled by his altered form. She asked eagerly about Sir Sung Jinwoo and glanced at Suho, wondering about the unfamiliar human standing beside Beru. Beru let out a small sigh, replying that it was a long story. Third observed the newly arrived figure, questioning if she was the summoned sacrificial demon. The man in the cloak confirmed, but noted with concern that she appeared to recognize their opponent. It would become troublesome if she chose to side against them. The woman sighed in relief, believing she was saved after unexpectedly meeting Beru. She relaxed slightly, thinking she could finally catch her breath. But Beru, unfazed, urged her to set aside thoughts of the reunion and turn her attention to the enemies before them. Her eyes widened in shock at the sudden demand. The man in the cloak decided to target the wounded demon first, knowing her blood was essential for producing the star powder. Suho glanced at the woman, noticing her injuries, and questioned whether she could handle them on her own. Beru, however, remained confident, stating that mere low-rank demons would pose no threat to her. Third recognized the demon and identified her as Essel. Beru explained that she was the eldest daughter of the Radiru clan, the only demon noble clan spared by his liege during the annihilation of the demon realm. In human terms, Beru added, she possessed abilities comparable to an S-rank hunter. Suho was momentarily shocked at the revelation. An S-rank? That meant he was about to witness an SB rank battle unfold right before his eyes. The battle erupted as Third Sword whirled with force, sending Essel stumbling backward. Suho and Beru exchanged glances, both visibly disappointed by her performance. Beru narrowed his eyes, voice sharp with disbelief. She had become noticeably weaker. Essel, tears welling, explained between shaky breaths. Half a year ago, the demon realm had fallen into chaos, most demons rising in rebellion. Her clan fought desperately, but couldn't suppress the uprising alone. She had barely survived thanks to her kin, but during her escape, her blood was forcibly extracted, robbing her of her strength and powers. Essel glanced at Beru, her voice pleading as she asked if he could heal her. Beru clicked his tongue in annoyance, brushing her off and remarking that it would be a waste of his mana. Essel pouted, calling him mean. Suho, watching the exchange, couldn't help but think to himself, what's with this weakened duo? The enormous demon asking if his brothers had heard. The man in the cloak nodded. At first he hadn't recognized her due to how weak she had become, but now, realizing she was a survivor of the Radiru clan. This was their opportunity to drink the blood of a demon noble and gain even greater power. Suho assessed the situation, believing he could handle one of the enemies as long as it remained a one-on-one fight. Beru, standing confidently, mentioned he had a brilliant plan. Having recovered enough mana, he decided it was time to use a particular ability. A notice appeared. Notice. Beru has used skill, Cruel Command. Notice. Skill Cruel Command has increased Essel's stats by 50%. Notice. As a side effect of Cruel Command, Essel has been afflicted with the curse of madness. Without hesitation, Beru commanded Essel, urging her forward with a sharp remark. Fueled by the sudden surge of power, Essel charged, launching an attack at the enemy. Watching the scene unfold, Suho couldn't help but feel a little sorry for her, but quickly refocused. As long as it split the opponents and created a one-on-one opportunity, that was all he needed. Shadow Brochi clashed violently with Third, their weapons and strength shaking the ground with each strike. Nearby, Essel engaged the man in the cloak, her spear meeting his lightning-infused attacks in a chaotic dance of power. Suddenly, Third broke away and lunged toward Essel, landing a brutal blow. As she stumbled, he seized the moment, declaring the acquisition of demon noble blood. Before he could act further, Suho appeared behind him in an instant, grabbing Third by the neck. With a surge of strength from his legs, Suho hurled him into the electrified cage with explosive point force. Third's body was engulfed in blue flames upon impact, writhing in pain. Without hesitation, Suho followed through, slashing Third. As the smoldering corpse of the demon fell at his feet, Suho stood tall between the broken remains, unwavering amidst the chaos. A notification flashed before Suho's eyes. Notice, you have eliminated a low-rank demon. Notice, level up. Suho glanced at the message and calmly muttered, "That's one." Another notice immediately followed. Notice, Vulcan horn has devoured the soul of a demon. Demon soul devoured. 1 point effect. Urge to destroy increases. Physical damage increased by 31%. Essel continued her fierce battle with the man in the cloak. The demon struggled under her onslaught, his focus faltering as he realized their youngest had been defeated. Panic crept into his movements as he sought a way to escape the relentless assault, but Essel pressed on, undeterred. Essel's eyes burned bright red. A notification appeared. Notice, the target of skill. Cruel command has run out of energy. Its effect has ended. Essel's eyes fluttered shut as her body collapsed to the ground, drained of all strength. The man in the cloak hesitated for a moment, confusion flashing across his face. In that instant, Suho appeared before him, seizing him by the neck and swiftly ending his life without hesitation. A notification appeared before Suho's eyes, confirming the elimination of a low-rank demon. Another notice followed. Vulcan's horn had devoured the soul of the fallen demon. The last demon slammed Shadow Brochi against the wall, glancing coldly at the battlefield. His thoughts echoed with disdain, outnumbered, surrounded by useless fools. Yet, amid the chaos, he saw a single opportunity. Without hesitation, he vanished in a burst of speed, reappearing near Essel. His eyes gleamed with dark intent as he lunged toward her, aiming to drink the blood of the demon noble and claim her strength for himself. Suho intercepted the demon just in time, delivering a forceful kick to the demon's arms and halting the attack. Without hesitation, he gave a command. Shadow Brochi surged forward, launching an assault on the last remaining demon, forcing it back. On the ground, Essel lay weakened, her strength spent. Beru approached her, observing her condition. Essel, struggling to catch her breath, glanced at Suho. Confusion flickered in her eyes as she noted the presence of a human capable of wielding shadow soldiers, a power she had only ever seen before in one person. Beru, unimpressed, regarded her calmly. He noted her inability to recognize the truth, attributing it to her lack of loyalty. He urged her to recall carefully, hinting at the connection she should already understand. Realization slowly dawned on Essel's face as the possibility crossed her mind. A series of notifications appeared before Suho. Notice, you have eliminated a low-rank demon. Notice, Vulcan's horn has devoured the soul of a demon. Notice, level up. Notice, you have surpassed level 20. You are now able to access the shop for purchases. Suho glanced at the notification, realizing the new feature unlocked. He noted calmly to himself that he had gained access to the shop system. Meanwhile, Essel, watching him closely, confirmed her suspicions. There was no doubt left in her mind. She softly acknowledged the truth. He was indeed the young monarch. Essel's gaze softened as she confirmed her realization, recognizing Suho's identity as the young monarch. Suho, hearing the words, briefly wondered if she had truly called him that. Essel continued, mentioning how she hadn't recognized him at first, but now saw clearly how much he resembled Sung Jinwoo. Before she could say more, her strength gave out and she collapsed. Suho glanced at her unconscious form, then turned to Beru, asking if she was all right. Beru assessed her condition calmly, noting that she had merely passed out from exhaustion, not death, and assured Suho there was no need for concern. The hunters leaned weakly against the floor, their bodies battered but alive. Beru moved among them, quietly tending to their wounds, his healing magic restoring their strength. A notification appeared before Suho. Notice, quest Rescue the survivors has been completed. Number of rescued survivors. 7. Notice. You have received a reward for completing the quest. Suho glanced at the hunters, satisfied. All 7 survivors were safe. Another notification followed. Quest rewards, stat points, +3, 700 gold. Suho blinked in surprise at the gold reward, then quickly opened the shop window. Rows of potions and items appeared before him. Realizing he could use the gold to buy these, he smirked. It felt just like earning an allowance by doing errands when he was younger. A small smile tugged at the corner of his lips as he thought to himself. Since this system was a gift from his father, perhaps this was another form of allowance. Silently, he gave a nod of gratitude. Essel lay motionless on the ground as Suho inspected the low-grade healing potion, questioning if it could be given to others. Deciding to try, he gently poured the potion into her mouth. Gradually, color returned to her face. Beru, observing, noted how Suho used his gold on a weakened demon, quietly acknowledging the young monarch's kind heart. Suho, deciding they couldn't leave Essel in her condition, instructed his shadows to take her to the shadow dungeon. He also ordered Brochi to carry the corpses of the defeated demons. Following his command, Gray and Brochi stepped through the shadow dungeon gate, carrying Essel and the fallen demons with them. Beru glanced back and asked if the young monarch wasn't coming. Suho shook his head, stating he still had things to do. He stood silently before the burning mist burns, watching the cursed flames consume them. The sight made him reflect. He had thought the same thing when he first encountered them, how painful their burning seemed. Apologizing quietly, he acknowledged this was the only way he could help them. With resolve, Suho activated his skill. Skill. Storm Slash has been activated. Suho walked steadily into the dark railings tunnel. Meanwhile, at the Hunter Association headquarters in Seoul Station, hunters discussed their findings. One hunter reported that although the corpses of mist burns and spiked lizards were discovered in the field-type dungeon, the wounds on the deceased hunters did not appear to be caused by those magic beasts. He added that deeper within the dungeon, they had found a basement partially destroyed by a blade. Another man, listening carefully, considered the information, concluding there must have been something else inside the dungeon besides the magic beasts. The man approached and addressed Lim Dogyun, confirming his identity as the one who reported the case. He mentioned there was a record of someone named Sung Suho listed in the .raid team's hauling unit and asked if Lim knew him. Lim Dogyun nodded, explaining that Suho was his junior who had joined to help. When asked about Suho's current whereabouts, Lim replied that they had escaped the dungeon together and he had evacuated Suho to a safe area, admitting that as E-rank hunters, the best they could do was request support from the Hunter Association. The man acknowledged the effort with a serious expression, then ordered a thorough search for any other traces. Lim Dogyun watched quietly, thoughts swirling in his mind. The one who rescued the surviving hunters. It had to be Suho. He couldn't understand why Suho was hiding his true rank, but he felt certain it wasn't for any malicious reason. He decided to wait patiently, trusting that Suho would reveal the truth when the time was right. Inside the shadow dungeon, Essel reflected on the recent revelations. She recalled how Sung Jinwoo had left Earth to defend it from an impending cosmic invasion. Nearby, Beru explained that their liege had originally tasked him with breaking the young monarch's seal, though Suho had managed to undo it himself, showcasing his innate talent. Suho, observing Essel closely, seemed to recognize her faintly. Essel confirmed they had met during his tutorial, reminding him of his promise to remember her, though it seemed that memory had faded. Suho furrowed his brow, struggling to recall the fragments of their past encounter. For some reason, the memory felt faint, just out of reach. Then, a flash of clarity hit him. He remembered facing Essel before, casually telling her he would finish things quickly since his time was precious. He also recalled her surrendering almost immediately upon meeting him. Beru, watching the exchange, commented sharply, reminding Essel how inadequate her response had been during a crucial test for the young monarch. His gaze then narrowed, questioning why she had become so weak and what had transpired in the demon realm to bring her to this state. Essel explained that after Sung Jinwoo defeated the Demon King and nobles, the Radiru clan rose to the top and peacefully ruled the demon castle, waiting for his summons. Decades passed, without issue, but about half a year ago, trouble began. A mana amplifier called Star Powder started spreading among the demons, disrupting the balance. Suho narrowed his eyes at the unfamiliar term. Star Powder? Suho recalled hearing something about the Star Powder during his earlier fights with demons. It hadn't affected high-ranking demons much, but for lower-ranking ones, it significantly amplified their mana without any cost. Essel explained that with Star Powder as the catalyst, and with Sung Jinwoo's prolonged absence, the demons began to unite under a shared cause, aiming to overthrow the Radiru clan, who were under the Shadow Monarch's protection. What began as a rebellion soon escalated into a full-scale war. The Radiru clan fought desperately to defend the demon castle entrusted to them, but after half a year of conflict, they were ultimately defeated. Essel lowered her head, burdened by the weight of survival, feeling it was shameful to be the only one left when her entire clan had fallen. Doubts gnawed at her as she wondered how Sung Jinwoo would react, now that the demon realm had been lost under her watch. Suho, seeing her despair, reflected quietly. He thought of what his father might have said in this moment. He believed Sung Jinwoo would have acknowledged the efforts of the Radiru clan, recognizing the loyalty and sacrifice they had shown even in his absence. Suho's gaze softened as he silently expressed his gratitude toward Essel and her fallen kin. He resolved to help her, rebuild, determined to stand by her side and restore the Radiru clan together. Essel recalled Sung Jinwoo's words, the promise he once made to elevate the Radiru clan to the top. The memory echoed in her mind, and without realizing it, tears began to fall down her cheeks. Suho watched, momentarily stunned, as a notification appeared before him. Notice: last survivor of the pure-blooded demon nobles, Essel Radiru expresses her gratitude to the player. Through her tears, Essel managed a small, genuine smile. Another message flashed before Suho. Notice: would you like to recruit the descendant of the White Flames, Essel Radiru, as a companion? A notification flashed before Suho's eyes. Notice: would you like to recruit the descendant of the White Flames, Essel Radiru, as a companion? He stood frozen for a moment, realization dawning upon him. Essel was a descendant of a monarch? Another message followed. Notice: last survivor of the pure-blooded demon nobles, Essel Radiru expresses her gratitude to the player. Suho pondered the implications. Was this because Essel was the only remaining pure-blooded demon noble? Without hesitation, he made his decision. Accept. A new notification appeared. Notice: you have recruited the descendant of the White Flames as a companion. Another message followed immediately. Notice: a bond skill has been formed due to your connection with the White Flames descendant. Bond skill: Demon Strike. Charge rate: 0%. A devastating attack empowered by the energy of the White Flames descendant. Essel's eyes widened in shock as a status screen suddenly appeared before her. Confusion washed over her as she processed the unexpected development. Suho observed her reaction, realizing that his companions could also see their own status screens, something he hadn't confirmed before due to Gray's inability to speak. Baru seemed to grasp the significance of the moment, his expression sharpening with understanding. Meanwhile, Essel remained frozen in disbelief as the realization settled in. She was the White Flame's descendant. Essel, Suho, Gray, and Brochi stood in the shadow dungeon, ready to test the new bond skill. As the system activated Demon Strike, a surge of white flames enveloped Essel's body, red lightning crackling in her hands. The energy surged toward Suho, transferring through their bond. His hand pulsed with power as he observed the skill in action. However, the immense strain drained Essel completely, and she collapsed onto the floor, breathless. She apologized, admitting it had consumed all her energy. Suho acknowledged her exhaustion and told her to rest, but in his mind, he wondered, if one activation drained her entirely, just how powerful could this skill truly be? Meanwhile, Essel realized the skill's nature, recognizing it as the ability to transfer her strength directly to the young monarch. Suho anticipated an incredible attack and struck the wall with full force, expecting a devastating bot impact. However, the wall only cracked slightly. Both he and Beru stared in disappointment. Beru observed that the attack didn't seem much different from Suho's usual strikes, lacking any extraordinary effect. Suho realized it wasn't like Gray's bond skill, failing to meet his expectations. Meanwhile, Essel, watching the outcome, felt disheartened. Had all her energy really amounted to just that? Suho considered whether the skill's charge rate being at 0% was the reason for its underwhelming effect. However, since there were no instructions on how to charge it, he remained uncertain about its proper usage. Beru then made a request, asking if he could consume the carcasses of the demons brought to the Shadow Dungeon. Suho immediately refused, explaining that he had brought them for shadow extraction. Upon realizing Suho hadn't attempted extraction yet, Beru suggested trying it now. Following the command, "Arise," a notification appeared, stating that the mana of the targets was contaminated and shadow extraction could not be used. Suho was surprised by the restriction, realizing he couldn't turn them into shadow soldiers. Beru explained that even his liege, Sung Jinwoo, had been unable to extract demons whose souls were tainted. Instead, he had controlled them through contracts, much like the Radiru clan had done. Seeing no other option, Suho allowed Beru to consume the corrupted demon carcasses. Beru expressed his gratitude, while Essel muttered in annoyance at being referred to as corrupted. Noticing Essel's exhaustion, Suho handed her a potion, assuring her it would help. She thanked him, feeling as though she had been nothing but a burden. Suho then offered her a place to stay, suggesting she use a sector of the city within the Shadow Dungeon. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Essel sincerely thanked the young monarch. A notification appeared, declaring that a section of the Shadow Dungeon had been designated as the Domain of White Flames. Another notice followed. Essel Radiru had been officially recognized as the master of the Domain of White Flames. Suho reassured Essel, reminding her that they were companions, so she had nothing to worry about. Suddenly, Beru's expression shifted to one of shock, immediately catching Suho's attention. Noticing the change, Suho turned to him. Beru revealed what he had uncovered. From the memories of the demons, he had found a clue about the Apostle of the Atarim. In the Shadow Dungeon, Suho and his companions sat in a circle, attentively listening as Beru prepared to share what he had uncovered from the demons' memories. Before revealing the details, he emphasized the importance of certain information. Star powder was not only spreading through the demon realm, but it also reached Earth, and the Mistburns were not native creatures but magic beasts from outer space. Essel's shock was evident as she processed the revelation, realizing that star powder's influence extended beyond hell. Suho, too, was deep in thought, grasping the significance of the Mistburn's origins and what it could mean for the battles ahead. Beru revealed that whether by coincidence or fate, the demons he had devoured were linked to Brochi, or more specifically, the Hyena Guild operating in the Mount Guanak field. Through these memories, he uncovered a disturbing truth. The Hyena Guild was supplying humans to the demons, who then infected them, turning them into Mistburns. These creatures were then used as ingredients in the production of star powder. Furthermore, Beru discovered that the production was not limited to a single location. There were multiple star powder factories scattered across different sites. The process followed a sinister chain. The Hyena Guild kidnapped humans, the Reaper Guild transported them, and the factories processed them into star powder. The deeper he delved, the clearer it became. The Atarim were orchestrating the entire operation, pulling the strings behind these three interconnected factions. Suho realized that everything was connected to the impending Atarim invasion. Beru then revealed an even more shocking truth. A human was responsible for creating the star powder manufacturing system. This revelation stunned Suho. A human? Beru confirmed it, explaining that the mastermind was none other than the Apostle of the Atarim, currently hiding somewhere on Earth. Additionally, there was another key figure aiding the Apostle, Lee Min-sung, the Vice Guild Master of the Reaper Guild. Investigating him could be the first step in uncovering the Apostle's whereabouts. Outside the Reaper Guild building, a swarm of reporters and media personnel gathered, their cameras flashing as they awaited a statement. As Lee Min-sung stepped forward, the crowd erupted with questions. The press demanded answers about the Hunter Association's investigation, to which Min-sung calmly responded that it had concluded without any allegations. However, the media pressed further, questioning whether he had truly been unaware of the Hyena Guild's involvement in kidnapping civilians, despite the Reaper Guild's direct support. Min-sung maintained a solemn expression as he explained that the Reaper Guild had only sought to bring order to the chaotic world following the cataclysm 2 years ago. He defended their decision to back the Hyena Guild, stating that their D-rank hunters were meant to serve the public efficiently. His voice wavered as he expressed regret, tears forming in his eyes. He lamented that his good intentions had led to an unforeseen tragedy and admitted that had he been more careful in his management, no lives would have been lost. With a heavy sigh, he lowered his head and issued a public apology for the trouble he had caused. The media buzzed with speculation as reporters processed Lee Min-sung's statement. Doubt and confusion turned to reconsideration as they noted that the Hunter Association had not raised any allegations against the Reaper Guild. As the realization spread, the narrative began to shift. If the Guild had indeed been supporting public safety efforts all along, then perhaps they were not the villains, but unsung heroes. Lee Min-sung smirked to himself, pleased with his own performance. Manipulating public perception was effortless for someone who had once been the greatest star in Asia. His confidence swelled as he reflected on the Hunter Association's response, or rather, their lack of suspicion. Even that cunning man had sent him back without interrogation. It hardly mattered. No one, not even the Hunter Association, seemed to realize that he was the true source of the star powder flooding the market. Unbeknownst to him, hidden in the shadows, Suho observed him carefully. Assessing the situation, he turned to Baru, seeking confirmation. But Baru sensed nothing. There was no trace of Itarim energy within Lee Min-sung. This meant he wasn't under their control. If that was the case, the truth behind his involvement had to be uncovered by other means. However, before Suho could act, Baru intervened. His tone was grave, his loyalty unwavering. Despite witnessing Suho overcome formidable foes time and again, this time was different. Baru was willing to lay down his life if necessary to stop his young monarch. The sheer mana radiating from Lee Min-sung was overwhelming, something far beyond what Suho could handle at his current level. Just then, Lee Min-sung's demeanor shifted. His once composed expression darkened, and his eyes burned with a menacing red glow. Sensing something amiss, he turned abruptly toward Suho's hiding place. But in that split second, Suho had already vanished into the shadows. Baru's warning lingered in the air. This opponent was unlike any before. A mere A-rank hunter in name, yet something about him was far more dangerous than expected.